everybody. Now, let's go ahead and talk about something that I really feel like I should share. For the past few uh, for the past few years, everybody has been seeing remakes. Every remake of every sort. It's like, you gotta think of something new, so let's just remake something, then we'll call it new. And that's what we're getting. We're getting remakes of all sorts of crap. And while I am gonna say I am sick of it, and I really think we should stop getting so many of these, I'm going to go ahead and talk about how maybe there doesn't need to not be any anymore, but there are need to be some rules if you are going to remake something. So today, I'm going to share what I think a remake should be if you are going to have to remake something. Because apparently everybody just thinks we gotta remake something for the hell of it, so that's what we're doing. So today, I'm going to talk about what I think would make for a good remake that we don't have to get so ashamed for. The first thing we'll discuss: what should be remade? What deserves the remaking potential? Well, here's the thing. The only things that really deserve remakes are things that didn't really succeed in the first place. Like, say, a movie, for example. We get remakes to all sorts of famous movies. No. The only time someone should remake a movie is if they're remaking a film that doesn't have a lot of popularity, or just didn't do very well at the box office. Those kind of remakes. A remake of something that isn't as popular, or something that failed at the box office, didn't get the results it should have had, so therefore you gotta remake it so it can get better results. I can understand, is a good way to remake something. I suppose rather than, I don't know, re-releasing it would make more sense. But if that movie just doesn't have the popularity it should have, or if it's just not something that succeeded very well, then I can understand that being a good reason to remake it. So, yeah. Just, if you see something that you don't remember or don't really care about, you can remake it because, maybe it's a good way to think about caring for it. You should do that. Actually put some care into something that you feel like you didn't put enough care into the first time. Or if you feel like you have put a lot of care into it, then, like I said, don't remake it at all. That's just what I think. So yeah, anything that isn't very popular or failed at the box office or whatever, that can deserve a remake. So that's my first topic. Anyway, what else should we talk about? Well, another thing I think we should discuss is, how exactly the remake should go. So, when you're remaking something, what are the qualities? Well, one thing for sure, and how it can fit with the franchise. Now, this is just more of an opinion based, but what I personally think is the only time a remake can actually fit with the franchise and not be something completely separate is if it shares the same studio. I know it's a weird thing to focus on, but like, I don't know, say the Disney remakes, for example. They are Disney, so anything like The Lion King or Alice in Wonderland, those can connect with the franchise. So those actually connect with the same sort of universe as their original counterpart, because they were both made by the same company. I just think, that is kind of how it works, because if you're remaking something for a different company, then that's just going to become something completely different, another style. So, the style would match with the company. So, if you have another company making a remake, then that other company that made the first film kind of doesn't really connect with the other one anymore. That's what I think. I think that, the only time a remake fits with the franchise is if it's from the same studio that is currently in charge of the franchise. So, with the Spider-Man movies all being in charge by Sony, that makes they all have to share that universe. Or, like I said, the Disney remakes, they share the same company, so they share the same universe in terms of their franchise. That's just what I believe. And I know it doesn't really have anything to do with what this video is supposed to be about, but I thought I'd bring that up. This video is going to be all about me bringing up every opinion I have about a remake. So that's just keep that in mind, okay? Yeah. Alright, so what's the next thing we should focus on? The next thing we should focus on is, if you want your remake to work successfully, think about what you're remaking. Think about the changes you're gonna make. When you're changing something, you gotta give it a change so it can fit with the movie. You gotta fit with the time and fit with what you can do. So sometimes you have a remake of something that was clearly meant to be what it was and that deserves to stay that way. Otherwise, just remaking it with a different style would cause it to completely go downhill. Like, of course, with Disney's animated movies, yeah, I'm just gonna bring up Disney up this whole time, aren't I? Of course I am. Disney has a couple of animated movies they like to remake, and some of them don't really feel they have ability to work the same way in live action. Like, let's say the new Little Mermaid movie, for example. That movie was always intended to be an animated adventure with all the CGI fish and everywhere. So there's all sorts of fun animated segments featuring the underwater scenery, which is very nice to look at. And when you remake it, you redesign all the characters and the overall scenery into CGI. That is where things go wrong. Okay. Now, what I like to hope was hoping to be is maybe that this remake would actually work more towards the original German story. Because I know that story was way too brutal and way too dark for Disney to have for their adaptation. But they could do that for the live action installment. Not make it too dark, but add a little bit more spice so it can actually work as a live action film. Rather than just look like something that you would see off of YouTube. And even YouTube, I feel like, would do better with that. Now, while on the subject, one thing I want to bring up at this point is, adaptation. There's a difference between adapting something and remaking something. Remaking something is having something that's already making a movie out of something that's already been a movie. So, like, you're taking something that's been a movie and making it again as another movie. But if you're taking something that was a TV show and making it into a movie or a video game or any other sort of media, that is where it doesn't really count much as a remake rather than an adaptation of actually something new. Something new is when you're making something that's never been a movie or a TV show or any sort of its media before. Like when you're making a new movie, it's only new if there hasn't been a movie like that again. Or same with TV shows or video games or anything like that. But if you are making a movie off of something that's already a movie, then that does count as a remake. It does count as something that you're making new and not really making off of your own spice. That's kind of the problem. Regardless, at the subject, if you want to remake something, you gotta make it so that it actually fits. You gotta spend less time focusing on how it originally looked and more time focusing on how you can make it look to what you have for now. Like the budget you have, the style you want, all of that. You gotta focus on that, okay? You gotta really focus on putting together what you can do rather than thinking of what was done and just focus on trying to do that all over again. Therefore, just completely missing the mark and making things look ugly and not too vibrant as they should have been. You gotta really make it your own style. Even if you're making something that you are stealing, just at least do something unique with this art style. Not like the overall scenery and stuff to fit with the modern time. Focus more on how you can actually make it rather than focusing on what it originally was and just using that as an example. That's just gonna cause major problems. Okay, let's all be honest. And the final thing I want to bring up about remakes, this is a controversial one, but I like to bring it up. Cultural diversity. It's been all around these remakes these days, okay? Of course, the new Little Mermaid movie drew tons and tons of backlash because the casting of a black Ariel caused people to make nasty comments, and all of the people charged of the movie wanted to face back and tell them that they are wrong. And while I personally think it's wrong to be incredibly racist about it, I think that Disney should not be hiring these people just because of their race color, just so they can be diverse. I'm not sure. Maybe they really did see something in her, but I feel like if they really did cast her just because she was a different race and that they wanted to make it so that we can actually see that they're not in trouble or anything, that's a problem. You can't be woke. What I personally think is you gotta keep characters the way they always were. If a character was always white, make him white. If a character was always black, make him black. Stick with what they originally were like. Their race, their gender, anything like that. Now, here's the thing. Race doesn't need to be separated at all, but gender does. I don't want to be sexist, but genders are the one thing in the society that deserves to be separated out of every diverse crowd ever. If we're going to separate anything from this diverse crowd, the only thing that can be separated once in a while, not all the time, but just once in a while, is with the genders, okay? Male and female. Just those two genders. No more genders. No. But just those two genders can be separated once in a while. So when you have the chances, you you want to separate some sort of cultural impact for some reason. So you're gonna have to separate the gender because they have there's a different taste in them than we have. So those are the main only thing that deserve to be separated from certain things. But any other thing like race or country wise or immigration, I said immigration, anything like that doesn't really need any sort of separation at all. Okay, and this is coming from someone who's kind of getting bored of it. I respect the other nations, I really do, but I respect them more if they just don't get this much separation for appreciation. Beat to it. But yeah, just any sort of like that. Anyway, back to the topic. Yeah, don't change gender or race or anything like that when you're remaking something. Now, I just don't think it's fair. I just think that, with some characters always meant to be what they were, changing any style of them, changing their genes or anything like that, it's just going to cause complaints. Like, changing the genes of a person to remake something is going to cause a huge controversy because you know that we all remember those characters for how they originally were. So changing any style of them, race, gender, anything like that, that's just going to make it a problem because even though you want to make something new, you're still taking on something that everybody loves. So, yeah, even if it is for something that no one really cared about before, you gotta keep them the way they were. Because that's kind of how it needs to work. Changing anything like that is gonna make it harder for you to want to make us want to appreciate the character. Because that's the only problem, really, it's easier to appreciate a character to focus on them for how they always were meant to be. I just don't think that change needs to happen with some things, and that's one of them. You know, it's not just for movies. Remakes of all sorts of things, TV shows and stuff like that, adapting as well. This goes for both remaking and adapting. That's just what I think, because it's even if it is for something that we never really thought of it very well at first. Unless you know that a big complaint was with one of those things, you really gotta keep them but at their same type. You want to remake something, don't try to change the character to keep things diverse. So, if you do want to change something, change it for a good reason. Changing it so you can be diverse and give more appreciation to other cultures is not a good reason to do that. Okay, you gotta do it for a good reason. You're gonna change a character's way of acting or stuff like that. It has to be for a good reason. It has to be for the better. If you're doing it because you want people to know that you appreciate those types, then that is not a good reason at all. We should already know that, but I just hope we don't. Okay? I just want to tell everybody that, for the overall society that we live in, if there's anything that needs to be separated, it's just the genders. Genders are the only thing in our society that should be separated for certain things. Not everything, but just for a certain amount of things. But other than gender, race, or anything like that does not need to have any separation, okay? We can respect them in certain ways, but not separate them from us. Not in the goods or the bads. Like, not just separate as in give them bad deeds, but separate them as in treat them like they're better than us. We should not do that. Nobody is better than anybody in this society. Doesn't matter if we're trying to make it so that they won't be upset at us. We gotta treat them equal. We can't treat them like they're better than us. We can't be better than anybody. I don't want to be better than them, but I don't want them to be better than me. That's just not fair. That's just why I think that race change is not something that needs to happen. Race or sex. None of that should happen. And there is my political opinions that completely went off the mark. I was supposed to be talking about remakes, but I just went a completely different path. So I am very sorry for offending all of you. But I am glad to offend because there is no reason people should be so badly offended by something that I feel deserves to be talked about. I just ruined your whole day, didn't I? I know. Well, I don't have anything better to do, so my day is fine. And that is what I think should be the case for remakes. Anytime you're going to remake a movie, it has to be for something that wasn't very popular or didn't do well at the box office. Something that you can actually change for a new look and not have to focus too much on how it originally was, and keep characters the way they always were made for their gene. Keep characters as they are meant to be. Don't try to change anything just because you want to make it so that we don't get upset that you're being not very diverse. That reason I just felt very ashamed to bring it up. So yeah.